Hello everybody and welcome to the 4th Age Total War Dominion of Men, a mod for Rome Total War Barbarian Invasion, the original game, not the remaster. One of the best mods available for this game, in my opinion, and I say that with some bias as I have been playing this mod and even been involved in parts of its production. But in any case, today we're going to start a new Let's Play series, and I thought what better option than to give a serious shot to the reunited kingdom of Gondor and Arnor. This is, in a lot of ways, one of the main characters, one of the main factions of the mod. This setting, of course, is after the events of the War of the Ring, several hundred years into the 4th Age. And the backstory for the mod, in brief, as you can see through various text scattered throughout the mod, is that we've imagined that a new shadow has arisen. After men have grown tired of peace, they have turned to cultic practices and secret Sauron worship, or Morgoth worship, essentially. This is something that was hinted at by Tolkien in a short story that he abandoned called The New Shadow. The antagonist that is most strongly associated with that shadow cult, we've imagined as the Kingdom of Adunabar, and this is essentially a Dunedainic kingdom that once was part of the Reunited Kingdom's forces. So we imagined this cult actually accelerating to a kind of civil war scenario, which we are now locked in. As you can see by the map over here, our portion of that kingdom still consists of essentially all of Gondor, with the exception of Anorian, just to the north of the White Mountains here. And we do not have Ithilien any longer. We've lost control of Mordor and control of the lands up the Anduin River. We do have some territory in the north as well, although despite the fact that Aragorn contributed to resettling Arnor, this is still not very well built up. The population is relatively low. The infrastructure is not nearly as well established as it is in the south. And if we look at the map to see what Adunabar has up there, yeah, they've got a little more territory and they've got a lot more military presence in the north. So that is where we will be most hard put to it indeed. Very, very difficult to get reinforcements up there. And it may not be something that we ever do, but we'll see. I would love to send a fleet north and land in the mouth of the Lune River there, and then send them to the aid of my Arnorian brethren, but we'll see if that ever occurs. In terms of other nearby factions, we do have a staunch ally in the Kingdom of Rohan. In the mod, these two factions, the Reunited Kingdom and Rohan, share a almost unbreakable alliance using the same mechanic that you find in vanilla Rome Total War between the Roman factions. And so basically, if we go to war with a faction, Rohan will follow us into that war. So they're going to be at war with Adunabar after the first turn. Similarly, I think we start at war with Dunland. We've imagined that conflict has broken up again. So we'll have to watch our borders to the north of Gondor as well. And then we also have some neighbors to the south to contend with. Most close to us, we've imagined the uprising of the Principality of Horondor. This is somewhat of a mixed culture faction. It consists mostly of Southrons, essentially, people who would be associated with the men of Harad further south and in Umbar. But it also contains some elements of Dunedainic culture, Dunedainic technology, potentially. But in any case, they've got some very strong units, but they're neutral to us initially. That said, this is kind of Gondorian territory. It literally means South Gondor. So we'll definitely be looking at eventually absorbing this part of the map anyway. Maybe we can leave Horondor alive in some capacity. I don't want to antagonize them initially. We have plenty of business to attend to with our other neighbors, but we don't want to let them run this part of the map. And further to the south, we have the old enemy Harad. We definitely want to get Umbar back and the coasts. This is kind of a Dunedainic prestige thing for this campaign. As far as the inland places go, we are not going to be too concerned with that. We will certainly go as far inland as is required to make Harad our protectorate, and that is going to be a long-term goal of this campaign. We're going to try to extend the borders of Gondor and Arnor to their greatest extent, try to get all of the land that was traditionally Dunedainic, and in terms of our enemies, try to get as many of them to submit as possible through protectorates, or at least reduction to a rump state status. Other factions in the area include this very interesting one, the city kingdom of Tharbad. This is kind of midway between Gondor and Arnor, and they control the lower parts of the Grey Flood River. They've also control one of the only good passages south from, say, Bree down into Dunland and Rohan. And so essentially they control the north-south road, which makes them a little bit annoying in some ways because they've got a very, very good hold on this choke point here. They are technically classed as a Dunedainic faction in terms of their culture for the mechanics of the mod. And we imagine that they sort of became established as a somewhat independent realm in the peace after the War of the Ring, where you had peace between Dunland and Rohan. You had Arnor being resettled by men from Gondor. And so presumably Tharbad would have grown in importance and grown in population. And we really see this place as kind of a melting ground. There are different elements of certainly Dunedain, men of Gondor here, but also Dunlanding ancestry and Rohirrim ancestry as well. So lots of different things. You're never quite sure which way Tharbad's going to go. They could be a very strong ally and help us to fight a Dunebar, or they could be an opportunistic enemy and betray us unexpectedly at the last moment. I should also point out that we do start off with a couple of allies and neighbors who will not likely give us any trouble. To our west, we have elves, of course the Grey Havens, and we've got Lindons, Forlindon and Harlindon. These regions are all held by the remnants of elves who remain in Middle-earth. They're allies with the Reunited Kingdom at the beginning of the campaign, and the Shire still exists as well, and so they're not going to be any trouble to us. We're going to be good Dunedain and resist the urge to conquer the Shire and take all of its trade goods for ourselves. And there are dwarves in the mountains of Lune and the Misty Mountains a little bit, and then over in various places in the east. So we'll potentially be able to trade with them at some point, but again, it's not going to be a major, they're not going to be a major feature of our campaign. So let's jump into the campaign, see what the map has in store for us. Okay, and here we are on the campaign map. We are greeted by this intro cinematic showing off some of the key units of the faction and also giving us a bit of history here. I'll just sort of leave this up. Well, maybe I'll read it. I wrote the thing. Why don't I read it? Let's go through this. After the long reign of Elessar Telcontar, the peace he established began to crumble. Chieftains of the Haradrim rebelled and took the great haven of Umbar along with many strong coastal cities, founding an empire that threatened the rule of the Dunedain. Corsair fleets grew thick as flies upon the sea, forcing the kingdom's armies to withdraw to protect the coasts. The principality of Harondor that arose during the Rack owes no loyalty to kingdom or empire. In Rovanion and Mordor, Rhune's hordes battered against the kingdom's outposts, driving its armies back over the Anduin. The threat was averted thanks to the valor of the men of Gondor and of Rohan, but in distant lands the Easterlings plot, and their armies swell with desperate men eager for the spoils of war. Left to secure their own defenses, the kingdoms of Rovanion and Dorwinion have arisen in the wake of these terrible clashes. And in its own lands and in the hearts of its own people, the Reunited Kingdom faces a darker threat still. The self-styled King of Adunabar, submitting to the poisonous influence of the Shadow Cult, claims the leadership of the Dunedain, and his armies have wrested control of many lands in the north and the east. Even Imladris has fallen to this new menace. In this new age, foes arise on all sides. So we'll resume the campaign and take a look at the map. Very important in this first turn. The first turn is always a very long one for the Reunited Kingdom because you start off with so many territories and there's just a lot to do. Is not to forget the north. It's very surprisingly easy to do that. We only have 3 settlements here. Of course, Anumenes is something like the capital in the region, and this is where we have our strongest military presence. But even that is not saying a whole lot. We do have our heir up here. Let's take a look at him. He's not too talented, but not too bad. He is a Dunedain, of course, of the House of Telcontar. He's energetic, so that might make him a better general and a fighter than a governor. He's overbold, which is not good, but I think that can be overcome with the fact that he is energetic. That's going to help his hit points. And so, yeah, I think we'll risk him in the field rather than running a settlement. So what we want to do is take everybody out as much as is possible and try to find what the best garrison option is. Probably one of these Kingdom Militia units. And then another thing I like to do is lower taxes everywhere. So I'll cruise around the map and take care of that right now. Okay, so I've made the rounds, lowered taxes everywhere. The reason I do that, by the way, is in part to encourage population growth. As you can see, it's quite low here up in Numinas, which is supposedly a very, very important settlement for us. It is a chief city, as you can see by that blue banner right here, which means that we're not restricted in terms of what we can build. We can build everything here that's open to us. And so we can theoretically get a lot out of this settlement, but we're going to need to grow it so we can recruit as much as possible. The other reason for low taxes is that it does help our faction leader's authority stat. This is something that we will be kind of checking in on throughout the campaign. I like to roleplay that aspect of it a bit. Authority, we can take a look at our king here, Enardil. And so his authority is not yet triggered because we haven't actually hit end turn yet. So there are going to be some traits and things that change once we actually begin our second turn of the campaign. And his authority will be visible then. It's probably not going to be very high, though, because he's got a lot of costs and not a lot of income. And a lot of those costs are being eaten up by the military. So those are a couple of factors in terms of authority. Low taxes can help with your faction leader's authority, though. And some other things would include, conquering territory, getting alliances, maintaining proper relations with certain factions. Like if we were to attack the elves, that would hurt his authority and so on. But in any case, I like playing the authority game and lowering taxes everywhere to encourage population growth. Otherwise, though, we do need to pay attention to what's available for training. One of the advantages of building up in the north and training your military up there is that you have the cheapest units available pretty much anywhere. These Reunited hunters are really a good deal compared to what we can train in Gondor. They're very light, of course, but they're bowmen, and ranged units in this mod are really quite effective. So in terms of upkeep, they've only got 70. Compare that with the other, relatively low-tier units like Kingdom Militia, where we're at 260. King Swordsman at 300. This is per turn costs. So Reunited Hunters, we're going to be training those guys. There's not too many of them per unit, and we'll have to, watch the population so we don't train a Numinas into oblivion. But they're going to be a really good deal we'll be returning to. Otherwise, though, we do want to take a quick look at our economy. With low taxes, we are projected to still be making money. We have not queued up any buildings yet, but I have queued up some units. However, this is almost certainly not going to be positive after this coming turn. We're definitely going to see some losses, and so we'll need to fight and build our way to a better economy. Speaking of fighting then, the first thing I like to do in the north is gather our forces as much as is possible. In Numinas, I've left just a single unit here of Kingdom Militia, and I think I want to do that, even though I'll probably end up moving him down as soon as these bowmen are trained. We've got everyone else under the air. We've got a unit of King Spearmen here, a unit of Longbowmen, which is great, King Swordman, a tier 2 sword unit, some bowmen of Gondor, and some Kingdom Militia. So we can also train some mercenaries. These guys, though, are quite expensive, 400 per turn. However, we definitely will be getting them at some point because just this medium cav capability is very important for us, especially up here. Now, we want to meet these units up with the other forces we have scattered throughout our territory here. One problem, though, is that there is some intervening rebel territory. The settlement over here is Fornost, and if we can get our emissary over, we can see that it is rebel-held, but not only that, there is a large army of Adunabar with some hill trolls right outside. What I typically like to do is avoid Adunabar and avoid the rebels kind of for as long as I can. So to that end, I'm going to move my forces into the woods here, We'll kind of set up in an ambush position, and then we'll just scoot down towards Bree, where we can meet up with these other troops. At the Watchtower of Amon, we do have some interesting stuff. Spearmen, bowmen, kingdom militia, but we also have Rangers of the North, sort of an interesting hybrid unit with bows and two-handed swords. Good at hiding, good morale, good stamina. A bit tricky to use, but a very interesting unit. And the other one we have here is the family member here, Eridan of Eastern Arthedain, is a unit of Grey Company. So this is a cavalry unit, sort of like mounted rangers, essentially. They've got bows, they've got swords. So another very interesting sort of hybrid unit. What I want to do with this force, though, is leave. I don't want these guys to risk getting caught in a siege at Weathertop. So we'll move them out. We do have a spy here, or a scout as they are called in the mod. And so we need to figure out where our next move would make sense. If we move up into the northeast, we can start to uncover some settlements here. Tardal is one, Ettendale is the other, and this one here, Lastbridge, is quite important to the cult in the region. It is another chief city, as indicated by the blue banner, and it commands the only bridge over the, is this the Horwell? I can't remember the name of this river. But in any case, this settlement absolutely has to go. We need to basically take all of this, and I'd like to grab Rivendell too and give it to the elves. But we're not strong enough to do that. Although it doesn't look like the garrisons are very large here, they're fairly strong, and there are other armies in the area hiding in the fog of war, and over in Rivendell there's a large garrison of what I know to be Orcish troops that could easily march west. Another route then might be to head south, and towards Tharbad we're going to run into another settlement. I think there's also a fair amount of Adunabar armies in our south, though, so maybe the best move initially is just to get these guys together right outside Bree, meet them up with the other forces I can spare, and then we'll bring them down with the air, and then send them off when we're ready to decide where to go. In the meantime, I'm perfectly happy to let Adunabar spend its forces trying to take Fornost. So let's then turn our attention to the south, in particular West Gondor. What I've done here is taken out some forces from Pinithgalen and Anfalas. I've left a governor here, and with a governor, what I like to do is put the settlement on local governance. That helps with his loyalty, essentially, the opinion of liege trait. Currently, everyone is set to be supportive, which is going to give them some bonuses to things like trade income and so on. But as I hit the end turn button, the actual traits are going to kick in. And a lot of these guys are going to not be supportive. Some of them will be more supportive, some of them will be less. And basically what I want to do is ensure their loyalty by letting them kind of run their settlement. I can still control the tax rate here by putting it on a growth build policy. That's essentially low taxes. I can untick these boxes so I can decide what to build rather than him, and what to train. Currently, I don't think I will queue up anything, just because I'm sure we're going to lose a bit of cash. But what we have here so far is some forces under Hunthor of the Green Hills. He's commanding a typical bodyguard for the Reunited Kingdom, these cavalry Knights of the White Tree. He's got some Gondorian horsemen, sword-armed, relatively light cavalry, with some bowmen and kingdom militia. And some other men are coming from a little further to the east. Some more militia, but also these Blackroot Vale bowmen, with I think one of the best ranges for missile troops available in the game, and certainly available to our faction. I think these guys outrange longbowmen as well. Pretty decent upkeep for what they are, and they can only come from this settlement here, Mornin, I believe, the Blackroot Vale, or Morthond Vale. So we will want to build this up to the point where we can train them. I think that'll be it's actually tier 2, so that's very much within reach. And then we can train our own Blackroot Vale bowmen out of here. And the reason we're sending them west is because there is this gap in the White Mountains, right at Thorenburg Keep. This is another fort that we command. If we get these guys all together, and then supplement them with other troops trained at these settlements and the fort itself, we can eventually bring the fight up to help Rohan in their conflict with Dunland. In the central part of our realm, we have done something fairly similar. We've got the taxes set to low, the governors set with the gear symbol, which means that they're running their own settlement, and everybody else that we can spare is out of the cities, including Dol Amroth. I don't have anybody in the city at all currently. There's no garrison there, but I think we'll be okay. I don't think we're going to get landed on by Harad and attacked just yet. But in case, we are queuing up a unit of Bowmen of Gondor. Dol Amroth is a really important settlement for us. It's a prestige settlement, but it's also very well built up, so we can train a lot of good stuff. Dol Amroth men-at-arms are fantastic cavalry. They've got spears, which is rare for the Reunited Kingdom's cav. Typically, the Gondorian horsemen are, lighter, medium cav with swords, so that means their charges are going to be a little less powerful. The other notable unit here is Knights of Dol Amroth, and in fact, that is, I believe, the unit, yes, of this bodyguard here, Ingold of Belfalas. He commands some Knights of Dol Amroth. Small unit size in terms of the number of soldiers, very costly, but a very, very effective unit. They frighten the nearby enemy, so that's infantry, cavalry, anything, and they're effective against armor, good morale, just a great unit all around. So very glad to have them, and we've already got some men-at-arms, some longbowmen, and even some mariners here for some javelins, and just a very, very solid unit. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with these guys. One option could be to send them west to help fight against Dunland. I think that's a bit of a waste. Dunland could kill these guys with javelins, so I'd prefer to throw mostly ranged units at Dunland or low-tier stuff that has larger unit sizes and less cost. These guys may end up doing some amphibious stuff against Harad, may just keep them in the area here for now, because Harad does like to land forces along the coast, so we'll have to see what they're going to do. For now, though, a good use of their time might be to build some watchtowers, maybe down here, so we can keep an eye on enemy fleet movements just a little more easily. And speaking of ships, we will not want to neglect the naval war. We do have some forces up at Dol Amroth here, ranging from the low-tiered Numeramar to the middle-range Palaran and the high-tier Alcarandas. So this is a good mixed force, and we can already see some Haradrian troops, so we want to gather our forces and eliminate these guys so that we can keep the coast safe. All right, and coming closer here, we can see that there are some other Haradrian naval forces in the area. No soldiers on board yet, which is good, but they do have some big and intimidating ships. The Corsair Marauder, these are very respectable ships. So what we want to do is bring pretty much all of our navy to bear. Every force that can reach. We've got a fleet at Lynn here and another at Pelargir. I don't think we have any boats up at minus Arnor. Nope. But all of these guys can reach. So we'll bring them down and then attack. Clear victory. We didn't lose any ships. And we do have to keep an eye on where these boats are going so we can track them down. Again, this shouldn't be too much of a problem for us. At most, they're going to blockade ports, but as you can see, we're doing a fair bit of trade, so we don't want that hit to our economy if we can help it. We'll just repeat that over here. And a very similar matchup. I expect this will go roughly the same way. Didn't actually eliminate any ships of theirs, but we won the battle. Looks like they're retreating south. And there is one more fleet down here. We can reach it with some of our ships, but not all of them. So I'm not going to risk that. You can see we've taken some losses in the fight. I'm going to keep all of our ships together, and then we'll go gradually and retrain them. That'll be one of the major costs that we're going to incur in the early part of the campaign, just getting our ships refitted to keep the coasts clear. Back to the land troops, though, we do have some men here that were not suitable for governing duty, and so I think we're going to send them over into the east. We're going to need the reinforcements. So this is Thorondir of Ethring. He's not particularly good, but he will be good at just ferrying troops back and forth, getting mercenaries, building forts, watchtowers, that sort of thing. And let's send him with some extra troops we had in Tarnost, including Dol Amroth men-at-arms. That'll be nice. And down at Lynn here, because we didn't have any garrison fodder in the settlement, there's no, like, kingdom militia or even bowmen, I figured we'd take everybody out and risk it, kind of like with Dol Amroth. We are training some kingdom militia here to serve as a garrison. But this force under Atanamir of Lynn here will also head over to the east. We'll meet up with this force outside of Pelargir. Inside Pelargir itself, we have kind of an elderly-looking governor. Pelargir does at least have some military development, and it will be an important place for training and retraining ships. Let's get these guys as close to minus honor as we can. And we'll be meeting up with all of these troops, but also we have some Lissarnic Axemen. This is a very interesting unit for us, only available here at the settlement of Arnach, just in the Vale of the White Mountains here. A two-handed axe unit, of course, good armor, and importantly, effective against armor. So an armor-piercing unit for the Reunited Kingdom. Pretty rare, very important. So with those guys gathered, we have pretty much approaching a half stack here, especially with the addition of these forces. That's going to be really nice to bring up. But in the capital, minus Arnor itself, I've left just a garrison of kingdom militia, and we've got our king ready to do some damage. He is Anardil of the Tower of the Setting Sun. He's got an elven helm, the Book of the Kings, which is really a good ancillary for governing, essentially. And these are his effects: the Elendilmir, Scepter of Enumenas, Silver Crown, Palantir of Orthanc, Endurial, Ring of Beret here. So all of those are giving various bonuses to things like combat, morale, hit points, law. So this makes him a very powerful unit. In terms of his actual stats, though, well, he's getting up there in age. He's not a great governor or commander, and so he's not going to be someone we want to risk in a lot of fights, although I imagine he will die of old age fairly soon. In this first fight, though, we have a very even matchup against this force to the north. A couple of different ways we could play this. One is to just set up on the bridge here, and that will frequently call forth an Adunabar force. They'll attack us on the bridge. We'll be fighting a defensive bridge battle. That's one way to do it. Another way is to be more aggressive, attack this army. I can see even now that they've got pretty good forces. They look like they outnumber us, perhaps, but they do have a unit of ballistas. Our most important unit in this fight is the Citadel catapults. These are what you want. The ballistas, we can eventually train our own ballistas. Actually, I think we can train them right now. But they're not that great, in my experience. Ballistas are good in a siege when you have nothing else and you want to just batter down that gate. But in a field battle, I'm much more impressed by the catapults. So we could go against this force and probably do fairly well. However, I might consider risking setting up on the bridge here, right outside of Minas Ithil, maybe even putting it under siege. The danger there is that they have their own catapults and a very, very strong army, easily comparable to our own. So let's split the difference. We'll set up on the bridge here, see what they do. And you know what? Since we've got mercenaries available, let's just go ahead and grab them. That'll allow the mercenary pool in the area to refresh so we can get more as needed. But I think we've done everything we want to do at the moment, so let's go ahead and see what the AI is going to say about all of this. All right, so we were not attacked during that turn, but I do see an opportunity here, potentially, to take Minas Ithil and or Amon Arnon. Let's take a look at our news, though. We've got diplomatic information coming in. So Rohan has followed us into war with Harad and Adunabar, and the dwarves are at war with Rune and North Rune. That doesn't really concern us. We are the most advanced kingdom, but we lost more money than expected last season, and let's take a look at what we're predicted to make or lose, and it's actually not too bad, minus 698. So our economy should be able to right itself with a few turns and a few conquests. Well, speaking of conquests then, let's get started. I think I do see an interesting opportunity here. We've got this force under Atanamir. that could reach this army standing right outside Amon Arnon. This host has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units, and we've got 8. It does have some cavalry. That could certainly be a problem. It has a couple of units of archers and some tough units otherwise. Let's just get our men over here and see if we can actually reach them. I think we can. Let's train some mercenaries, and let's attack. They're going to stay and fight, so now we can get a closer look. Ooh, some black shields. Okay, this is a pretty tough unit. But I think we can deal with it. They've got all heavily armored stuff, and that'll be a good use of our Arnach axemen. We've also got mariners for some ranged, 2 units of longbowmen, which are good. They're going to have the height advantage against us. Inside a settlement, another unit of archers and a family member. Ooh, a family member commanding a unit of black company. This is interesting. So this is an infantry archer unit. We'll be able to train a very similar version of this, the white company, once we take Amon Arnon. So let's see if we can make that happen. Oh, and in fact, we do have a unit of white company here. Okay, I was not aware of that. So this is our general, not a unit of cavalry at all, but a unit of white company. This is good. This is actually a very strong unit in terms of melee as well as range. It is vulnerable to missiles, though, and so we will have to keep an eye on that. So that certainly changes things. We have 0 cavalry. 0 cavalry. Okay. Got basically in the front line here our infantry with shields, right? So we've got our king swordsmen on the left, backed by our Arnach axemen. We want to keep them away from the arrows if possible. Mariners here, ready to throw javelins in the center. And on the right, King's Spearmen. These guys should be a good anchor for us, but we also want to send them against the enemy cav, backed by some mercenary Gondorian swordsmen. Now, our back line of archers, all of these guys can fight. The King's Longbowmen are very, very solid hybrid units, as are the White Company. So we need to be thinking about that. These are not, wilting flower type archer units. So we could go up here and try to flank them around the right. The city is going to be up there, so that's where the reinforcements are going to come from. So this might not be the best option because we'll be fighting kind of between the two of them. So I guess let's go over to the left. Yeah, we can see them up on the hill there. So this will be a long walk, and we'll have to preserve our stamina, so we're not going to be doing any running up the hill. Hopefully they'll be able to let us get roughly even with them. Alright, so we have made it up this hill, but our men are winded, so we'll probably let them rest for a moment before pressing on. I'd like to get up to the left a little bit more, see if we can steal a bit of height advantage. Alright, and so far so good. We have managed to get up the hill without any casualties. I'm bringing my longbowmen forward here. It looks like the AI has 4 archer units. That's more than my 3. But they may bring them out one at a time, and so if I can focus them down, we may be able to make something happen there. Alright, and we are close enough to target their dark bows here. We've managed to get up into the trees. That could prove a nice advantage if they're going to come for us. We're getting some shots in. We can take a look at their army here. It looks like they've got some dark swords. I don't know why they're all back to me at the moment. But they've got these black shields. Very, very strong unit. And actually, since they're presenting their back to us, it would be a good time to get some shots off. But they're reconfiguring. Swords of the Shadow are another very tough unit there in mail from head to toe, basically. And this is their, what is it, Black Company? Followed by some medium cavalry. So they're actually getting out of the range of our bowmen right now. So we can move over here. And now we've stolen the high ground from them and gotten in between them and the city. So this could work out very nicely. Alright, I think we're going to target the enemy Black Company. This is their bodyguard unit for at least one of the forces. And then should be a pretty easy target to get some losses on. We've already taken a few of them out. It is raining, however. But now we have the hill. And our mariners are going to be ready to fire pretty soon. We are getting some return fire, it looks like. Let's actually change how this is going to work. If I can get my spears over to the enemy cav, that would be great. They have reached our longbowmen, but these guys are no slouches in melee, so we're going to do just fine, I think. But let's pull them out for now. Black Company is down to just 10 men. But he's got some very, very tough units around him. The Sarnic Axemen are not really where you want them to be. I think I send them after the cavalry. And the problem is, in a prolonged melee like that, they're going to start to take losses. But hopefully they'll do okay.
Longbowman, bodyguard, longbowman, swordsman, mercenary, swordsman, longbowman, 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 longbowman. Swordsman. Swordsman. Swordsman.
Dark swords over here are wavering. They're completely isolated, and we are closing in with our mariners on them, so I think they'll be routing pretty quickly. Black Company is down to just 3 men, and Swords of the Shadow are doing quite well on our right, so we'll have to deal with them pretty soon. This horseman unit is actually the commanding unit for the bulk of the enemy forces here today. And he is losing men fairly rapidly, so we can keep on him. That'll be a big advantage taking him out. And there go the, what is it, the dark swords on the left. So let's switch targets. You can go over here. Let's see, do we want to send them at the black shields? I don't think so. Let's send them at the dark bows, actually. They've got javelins. And the longbowmen can chase these guys. I don't want anyone to get back to the city if possible. Alright, we've cut them down pretty well. I think we can afford to bring these longbowmen back. Let's focus on the bodyguard with our archers for a moment. We'll leave the mariners here. They can pick their own targets. It looks like they actually have shot everything they can shoot. So let's send them back to the Black Company here. Horsemen of the Shades are shaken. Black Company's down to 1 man.
Longbowman.
The enemy general flees. Press forward so the spirit of his army is broken too.
Down to 4. We don't necessarily need to kill him. The one we do need to kill for sure is the Black Company. That's the family member unit. And if he escapes, he will get back to the city. This guy, as long as we kill enough of the army, will not make it back to the city. Okay, let's turn to the Spears of the Shadow. Send the longbowmen in as melee units. I wouldn't mind killing that horseman. There he goes. Let's now focus on the archers, I think. 7 Spears of the Shadow. Let's close in on the dark bows. Dark bows are marching. Wavering. So we have to be ready to chase them pretty soon. There goes the enemy general. And yeah, we've got to clean up these routers. I wish we had 1 unit of cavalry. That would be really helpful right about now. We did kill a fair amount. We're at 84%. I think the magic number is 85%. At that point, and we're at 86. At that point, I think the enemy army will melt away. If that's the case, we might be able to walk into the city without having to besiege it. That, of course, would be quite nice. So I'll just clean up these routers here, and we'll see if we get to that point. And so we didn't succeed because I ended the battle too soon. So we had some withdrawing bowmen who had not routed yet, and because I thought, oh, we got to 86, 90% casualties, I can just end the battle now, and press the buttons a little too quickly, and yeah, so we did not win that. Let's see, what can I send over? Probably the king and some cav and some kingdom militia. That ought to do it. I'll just fight this little battle here. We'll bring the kingdom militia. We'll have to send somebody back to garrison minus Arnor. We'll see if they fight. They will. Okay, now with cav, back to the city. I'm going to go right up here, and we're just going to run up the hill. We've got some archers coming in as reinforcements, and we've got a bunch of other, you know, just remnants, essentially, here. They are archers, though, but I think the fact that we've got our bodyguard, we've got some cav, I think we'll be in pretty good shape to take them out and actually win this time. Here's hoping. All right, so far no shots fired as we approach their front lines. They do have a few spearmen units, but I'm really not that concerned. We can tie them up with our kingdom militia, and this is everybody here. The reinforcements, no one else is behind us. We are winded. Well, let's aim to tie up these infantry, and we'll send our cavalry after the dark bows. Okay, so we've caught them with our cav. As usual, this is not a great charge because archers are, well, they're not that easy to pull off a good charge against because they withdraw, of course. And so you catch them, but they don't stand, and so you tend to have sort of less impact. Now, we are getting caught by some spearmen here, but we're going to go right through them. Let's hit this bodyguard unit of dark bows. Got our kingdom militia tying up the enemy units there. To 5 men. Come on. Spearmen have caught us. I'm kind of willing to stay there. They're down to 2. Routing. Great, they're gone, so let's pull on through down to these archers. Still got plenty of men in our king's unit. As long as he himself doesn't drop, we should be fine. And even though these units that we're fighting are better than our kingdom militia here, we've got the men that we're winning easily against them. And we've routed the other bodyguard unit there down to 5 men. And I'm going to leave the riders to take him out. Actually, they're all done. And so we'll go back up here. The only unit I'm worried about now is the Spears of the Shadow. And of course, we do need to finish the job with these black shields in particular. Alright, but now everybody's engaged, so we should be able to get a nice charge in. And there we go. That was the thing I should have waited for in the last battle. the actual victory screen. Okay, clear victory, no survivors. That's what I like to see. Let's see how the city looks. Okay, an empty city after a battle, just what I like to see. We'll go ahead and conquer Arnor. There is a bit of a risk to doing this, and that comes, well, we'll talk about that in a moment. What we want to do now, I think, is occupy. We could lay desolate, but there's really no purpose. There's not that many people here, and we want the population. This is certainly one of our homeland settlements. So what we will want to do is get going on that Dominion building by first destroying the Adunabar homeland Dominion. So we're going to destroy that. Now the only option for building is this provincial pacification. But first, there are a few other things we can get rid of. In this mod, if you capture another city, the enemy barracks do nothing for you. You can't train anything out of them. So you want to just destroy them. You make some money. Markets, though, do give us some bonuses. So does the herbalist. That'll be good for population. We have some elven gardens here that are sort of the remnant of the elven gardens, I think, established by Legolas. Is that right? But in any case, we can't destroy that. So that's just giving us some nice bonuses. The High Temple of the Shadow, though, yeah, we're going to get rid of that. So this is still kind of officially Ways of the Shadow cult. And that is, let's see. Our governor should be Ways of the West, yeah. But that is because the region essentially has been infiltrated by the Shadow Cult. So what we need to do is build up our own cultural buildings to convert it to the Ways of the West. But we have to do this first. So we'll queue up that provincial pacification. And then because the public order is looking so good, I'm going to take all of these guys out again. And we're going to set up right here, right at the bridge. And we're going to have a second battle here. Not in this episode, though, unfortunately. We are going to have to wait. Actually, Midas Honor is looking a little undefended, so have a Kingdom Militia there for some reinforcements. But in the next episode, folks, what we are going to do is attack this army. Let's see what that will look like. So, it's very even numbers. They outnumber us slightly. It's our king versus theirs. Imrazor of North Ithilien. Commanding a unit of Adunabar nobles very similar to our own Knights of the White Tree. His main army, though, which is right on the bridge, the army that we will be facing, includes some catapults of the Shadow Cult, as well as a couple of very tough cavalry units and a unit of light cav. So they've definitely got the rider advantage. However, what we have to deal with that is Company of the Guard. These are some of our best units, especially against cav, long pole arms, excellent morale, all kinds of bonuses. So we've got 3 of these guys. We've also got a couple of longbowmen and a couple of units of men-at-arms, as well as 2 units of spears. So we should be in a pretty good position to take out this army, take out the king, and take Minas Ithil back. But that's going to wait for the next episode, folks. Thank you very much for joining me, and we will be back next week with another episode in the Reunited Kingdom. I hope to see you then. Bye-bye.